In North Dakota Senator Kevin Cramer. He's a member of the Senate Banking Committee. Senator, thank you so much for being here. We had Speaker Johnson on the show yesterday, and I asked him about the timeline when it comes to appropriations. I want you to listen to what he told us.
We got them all through the Appropriations Committee in the House, 12 separate bills. We passed 3 off the floor. The Senate passed 3. They don't match up exactly, so we have Conference Committee working to work out the differences and get that done. The next batches that we will pass through and off the House floor are being prepared right now by the appropriators, and they're doing that in bipartisan discussions, by the way, because this should be something that's bipartisan. So we're very optimistic that we can keep that process going forward and be better stewards of taxpayer dollars. That's our call and our charge here. We're working on it very hard. Republicans in charge will get that done. We just need, again, a couple of Democrats in the Senate to help us because we need 60 votes over there. We only have 53 Republicans.
And Senator, this is where you and your Senate colleagues come in, because the Hill's reporting that some Republicans are saying, look, there's not enough time to get everything done. There's going to have to be another CR, maybe a longer term one. What are your thoughts?
Well, thank you, Cheryl. I do think we're going to need more time because we've now wasted 3 weeks, perhaps going into 4 next week, with Democrats insisting on keeping the government shut down because, as Bernie Sanders says, if the government shut down, if we reopen the government, we, quote, lose our leverage. So they see paying federal workers and military men and women as leverage to get other policies passed. And the appropriations process, and the Speaker's exactly right, even in the Senate under the leadership of John Thune, and more importantly, the leadership of the Appropriations Committee by Susan Collins, we have moved appropriations bills in a big bipartisan way out of the Appropriations Committee and to some degree on the Senate floor, but now that cooperation has also slowed down. Last week we failed to get Democrats to support moving forward on an appropriations bill to appropriate money specifically for national defense. The most legitimate thing, by the way, that the federal government does is defend the nation, and they even opposed that. So that cooperation has waned. I think, to be honest, I think some of it has to do with the fact that Susan Collins is a high target of Chuck Schumer for defeat in the next election, and this has just become so partisan for Democrats. So we're going to need more time than the next 3 or 4 weeks that the current CR gives us to finish off the appropriations process. Even if you went to an omnibus, we're going to have more time to negotiate, which is, again, so ironic considering that, and the president, by the way, his expectation is right on point. Open the government, Democrats, we can have a discussion, but we can't until they do that.
Well, I wanted to ask you about some comments from Senator Thune, Majority Leader Thune, that came out earlier this week. You know, he basically is starting to say, look, I think the House is going to need to come back to work, and that's why it was so important that we had spoken with Speaker Johnson yesterday. But I want to get your take on that because, you know, a lot of this is that, you know, there's a senator-elect from Arizona. We know that that's been held up. Now the state of Arizona is suing Johnson to get her sworn in. That's one issue I wanted to ask you about, even though it's on the House side. But the other is the fact that Senator Thune is really seeming now to start to kind of put the pressure on the House Speaker. Did that come up at that lunch yesterday?
It did not. However, let me just say that the one thing that did come up at the luncheon the president spoke to, and that is that John Thune and Mike Johnson are in complete sync with one another. They work closely together. They're very different individuals, both very strong, faithful men, though, very bright and experienced. And I think Senator Thune's point to the House is, by the way, I think it's been good that the Speaker hasn't had the House here. We don't need 435 more negotiators. They did their job. An important point, by the way, the House passed this clean CR. All the more reason we should be passing it. However, as we get to the deadline of the actual extension of the CR, we are going to need some more time. So even if we were to pass it with, say, adding a couple of weeks, it would require another House vote. So I think the leader and the Speaker are in sync on this. It may be getting to be time for him to bring the House back into session, if for no other reason, to just start doing other legislation, and perhaps to swear in the House member from Arizona that they're so uptight about.
Yeah, no, but also too, you know, there is business in front of you this week, and that is federal worker pay. I mean, you've got members of the military, the Capitol Police, who, by the way, have been there at the Senate all night, because you've got the senator from Oregon, who I believe is still on the Senate floor. Correct me if I'm wrong, with this marathon He's still talking. There we go. I've been looking at those live pictures this morning. So, okay, but they're not getting paid, the FAA. And Senator, what do you say to the American people? Because when flights start to get canceled and air traffic controllers aren't getting paid and TSA agents and members of the military are having to go back on food stamps, some still have to take food stamps to get by. I mean, that's when the American public starts to get really fed up. What point do you and your colleagues pivot on this?
So, great question, because Leader Thune did tee up, and I believe it'll be ripe for a vote tomorrow, Ron Johnson's bill called the Shutdown Fairness Act, which guarantees payment, in fact, continues to pay, even retroactive to September 30th, all of the essential workers that are coming to work and not getting paid. All the people you named, plus Border Patrol, ICE, federal law enforcement, the FBI, and everybody else that has to work but is not getting paid, in addition to the military men and women. So we have that opportunity tomorrow. That will be the real test of Democrats, in my view. If they can't even get on board with paying the people who are working in the federal government, the government that they love so much, that would be telling. That would demonstrate a pure partisan, quote, leverage, to quote Bernie Sanders. I mean, Chuck Schumer said every day the government's shut down is better for Democrats. Now, who says that? I mean, who even believes it, much less says it out loud, except Chuck Schumer? I think that's the big test, Cheryl. If we can take care of these essential workers, make sure they're getting paid, the people that are protecting us, you're right, the Capitol Police, we walk by them every single day, and it's heartbreaking. They keep working, and they also, by the way, keep a good attitude, I might add. I'm inspired by it. But so we are going to pivot to that tomorrow and see if we can't at least get people paid.
Yeah, I think, too, we were talking about this with the speaker yesterday. When you start to see these fights breaking out in the hallways of Congress, like with Senator Kelly, Senator Gallegos going after, Speaker Johnson, which we talked with him about yesterday. That's when, the folks are starting to look for some type of resolution. I mean, is there any path forward here where this ends in the next week? Real quick, sir, before you go.
I believe there is, Cheryl. I really do. I think that now that the No Kings rally, isn't that ironic, by the way? They say Donald Trump's a king, and then they hand him the keys to the kingdom by not reopening the government, literally give him complete control of the government. It's so rich. But yeah, I think there is a path. I think we're close. We have some senators that are frustrated with their own leadership. I might add that the two senators from Arizona, both of them whom I like a lot, but they could get their congressman sworn in. They wouldn't need to fight with the speaker if they'd cooperate with him and reopen the government.
Yeah, change their vote. There you go. Senator Kevin Cramer, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for being here.
Always mine. Thanks, Cheryl.
All right.